SABC, host broadcaster of the G20 South Africa 2025.
So leaders and delegates from across the world will be gathering this weekend for the G20 Summit at Nasrec in Johannesburg. Africa's first G20 will see representatives of 42 countries, but of course not the United States, a founding member of the group and one that's supposed to be taking over its rotating presidency. Our correspondent, Sherwin Bryce-Pease, is at G20 HQ, as we call it. That's our satellite studios in Nasrec, and he joins us now live. And Sherwin, as I mentioned earlier, the stage is quite literally set.
And it's being dominated by the SABC news crew at the moment. We are the first to arrive. It's the first to arrive here at the Nasrec Expo Centre, the Johannesburg Expo Centre at Nasrec. And this will be the nucleus, certainly the headquarters of where leaders will be deliberating, where journalists will be gathering from around the world. It won't just be us. The competition is here too. And certainly delegations arriving with their media contingents will be based here at the media centre. And let me just give you a lay of the land. Behind me, you have essentially where the media will be fed. That's where they will be eating. There are couches here. There are booths where you can have private conversations, radio areas, TV studios. There is a big press conference area. There is an information desk. And so what the first takeaway is that certainly the South African government has certainly tried to put its best foot forward here as it seeks to really amplify the fact that this is not only South Africa's first G20 Leaders Summit, but very much also a first for the African continent, and also the first time that the African Union will be participating as a full member. So to give you a sense of what else is going on around Johannesburg, which is essentially a broad venue for activities around this G20 summit, let's go to this. Business leaders and policymakers are convening at the B20 summit in Sandton to finalize and spotlight the 8 task force recommendations developed over the past year, ahead of their formal handover to the G20 Leaders Summit. SABC News reporter Diabo Seto joins us for more. Diabo, a very good morning. What's the latest from where you are?
So someone would need to cue me, guys. Okay. I can't hear Sherwin.
All right, I'm told our reporter Diabo Seto is not there. Perhaps let's bring in our guest. Let's go to this next. The G20 social... Let me just go to the right thing. The G20 Social Summit, or the G20 hosts under the presidency, the theme, of course, solidarity, equality and sustainability. Youth leaders are amplifying their calls for transformative skill policies. And a central issue, the misalignment between SETA-led training and the real needs of young entrepreneurs in a modern digital economy. For this discussion, we are joined by the CEO of the Youth Chamber and Commerce and Industry South Africa, also the Y20 co-head of the Secretariat for South Africa, and she's also on the B20 Trade and Investment Task Force. It's a great pleasure to welcome Denise Rapizzi for this conversation. Denise, a very good morning to you.
Good morning, Sherwin. How are you doing?
A few technical bugs, but otherwise okay. So let's talk about the G20 presidency of South Africa that really is shaping this global event. But let's talk about what is of import to the seat and the perspective that you bring in terms of youth employment and the skills agenda. How are you infusing the G20 conference with that perspective?
Well, I think firstly, from a Y20 perspective, we have incorporated it by actually looking for digital skills and actually calling for more accessibility and more equality, because we do face quite a bit large inequality in South Africa, especially with regards to the skills gap. We aren't competing with our global partners. But again, then that's a financial, then we're looking at economic inclusion. So with the B20 and the G20 presidency, we have, this has been a very long journey, Sherwin. I told you earlier on about how exhausted I am. This has been a journey that started last year, mid-last year, in preparation for this. So it's been a very long journey around the place where we actually put in business, not only business, we also have public sector and also private sector players within one space, actually just trying to find resolutions to it. The issue of inclusivity, again, plays a large role because we have seen the summit take place. However, we are still struggling to get the basic person out there to even understand what is G20 before we even start with, the skills gaps, anything. What is G20? How does it play a role for the common person on the ground? And so there's been a large exclusion where we have tried to advocate for it from a Y20 perspective, but also from a B20 perspective, where we do see a lot of global leaders. And our voice is really a small one, but it's one of the few in the room.
I mean, when you talk about a skills gap, right, the world, Denise, is moving very rapidly into an era of artificial intelligence, robotics, and everything that goes around the artificial intelligence realm. We already are seeing how job losses are proliferating across the United States and around the world due to the fact that people and human skills are sometimes just not needed anymore, given the technological framework in which we now operate as a society. Is Africa's youth, South Africa's youth in particular, adapting at the rate required for the future that is certainly not waiting for us?
Well, only if you go to private school, you might be on par with the rest of the world. However, South Africa's youth is not adapting to the current climate of the world. It's not only around the AI generation or what we do around the digital age, also talking around sustainability and innovation. Should you want to take up a course, there are large infrastructure issues and gaps. For example, a lot of the digital programs that are provided by NGOs and other organizations are all online. That causes a massive, massive issue in terms of accessibility when young people don't even have data for airtime, let alone staying on a course for 3 hours. Secondly, these aren't the courses that are also taught from a basic perspective within, basic education. We don't have any digital courses unless you take the IEB curriculum in a private school. However, I will say that there is good news. With the Youth Chamber of Commerce and Industry, we've recently partnered with the likes of Cisco. We've partnered with MIC CETA to actually expand and to actually minimize that gap and ensure that young people receive free training across opportunity centers, across different centers around the country. So this has really helped us to also just try and play our role.
Denise, as heads of state and government descend on Johannesburg, of course, the focus is going to move away from B20 and Y20 and M20 and all the other 20s, very much to the G20 Leaders Summit. I wonder what, in terms of the outcome document, the declaration, whether it's a chair statement or otherwise, what are you expecting in terms of commentary or the narrative around what the youth is seeking and what that declaration might give you?
Again, same thing, very, very repetitive. Inclusivity in terms of economic inclusivity, more skills development. How do we also create sustainable systems within South Africa? Because, we're also looking at the European Union and what they put forward with regards to green energy and green technology. How do we encounter and how do we actually close the skills gap? I think we need 1 billion jobs in Africa already. How do we create those jobs? How do we work with our partners? Trade relations, which is very important. How do we advance ourselves as an African continent by trading with each other, but also how do we strengthen our ties with our political partners? So I think, there's a lot that they still need to do. But one thing that I am curious about, Sherwin, is I'm just wondering what's going to happen after they're done with the policy document, especially with handing over to the Americans. Will it even be accepted? That's my only question, and I hope that our recommendations are accepted from a United Nations perspective. However, we'll just have to see.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And of course, the United Kingdom takes over from the United States. And so that troika, right, between South Africa, the United States and the UK is going to be absolutely pivotal when it comes to the implementation of some of the agreements that will certainly be spearheaded by South Africa's G20 presidency. Denise Rapitsi, thank you very much indeed for your time this morning.
Thank you so much, Sherwin.
Denise is, of course, the co-head of the Secretariat of the Y20 South African National Delegation. She also serves on the B20 Trade and Investment Task Force and is, of course, her day job, the CEO of the Youth Chamber of Commerce and Industry in South Africa. So a little tidbit here for you, Ayanda, from our new headquarters for the next few days. here at the Nasrec Johannesburg Expo Centre. Let's hand it back to you in studio.
Sherwin, thanks very much indeed for whetting our appetite. We certainly look forward to the next couple of days, 2 days to be more exact, when there'll be a whole lot more action coming from the G20 headquarters, as we've dubbed it, live from the Nasrec Expo Centre in the south of Johannesburg.